Should be cold in here by opening window. Happy Wednesday, everyone. Every 2 weeks, we accompany the Roadmap Roundup with a update with a brief explanatory note to give you insight into the decision making that led to any changes. This is part of an effort to make our communication more transparent, more specific, and more insightful for all of you who help make Star Citizen and Squad Division possible. With that said, let's dive into this week's Roadmap Roundup. The community team notable changes for May 15th, 2024. It's not back yet. So, I'll read the next header. Okay, release view. In this week's Roadmap update, we're excited to announce the addition of 4.0 to the release view, targeting Q3 of this year. Below, you'll find the initial set of features, note initial set of features, and content planned for this release, with more to come in lead up to launch. Not only, of course, do we have the hidden things that will just be plopped on us when 4.0 goes live? Accent for no reason. When 4.0 goes live, but also there's plenty of stuff that could sneak in or sneak out in the lead up. I'm hoping the CL gets in there, because gosh dang it. Why is the ES the one on the fast track?
I thought they said it was the A1. The CL was coming at IAE. I haven't watched
I thought that was
SCL
the MR.
from I haven't watched SCL from last week. I'm behind.
The Polaris is the thing they said is coming at IAE.
Okay. I'll have to go back.
No. So if we follow the track, because they said at CitizenCon, hey, the Zeus is going to follow the same pattern of the Spirit. Then they released the A1 patch later, the C1, and who God knows when the E1. So if this is following the exact same cadence, it'll be 4.0 the ES, and then 4.1 the CL. God, I hope it's the CL. And God knows when the MR. Well, I don't know, because we have, I guess, patch later the CL, patch later the MR. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought
the end of this year gets real fuzzy.
I thought the ES was kind of an interesting choice, especially given that the CL, all the cargo stuff is, and hangar stuff is any week now.
I need my anti-Spirit.
And so, but at the same time,
the longer I play the Spirit, the more I hate it.
Like when people say, well, we don't have exploration, so why are they making an explorer ship? It's like, well, it's not really a dedicated explorer ship. It's a versatile multi-role ship, that is more, it's kind of like calling
it should have been called the MR. It really should have been called the MR.
Yeah.
It's the middle. It's exactly what the Aurora MR is. It's the kind of is just the basic.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad that they're not working on the Bounty Hunter one, because to me it would just be, yay, another combat ship that has a whole bunch of space taken up in the middle of it for a mechanic that isn't there. It's like that.
Yeah.
Until they have an idea when Bounty Hunter V2 or at least more bounty hunting like mechanics come along, it's a ship that can wait. I did North End Trooper. Yeah, he North End post the link again in my Discord, but I did upvote it. So,
you want to take the first one? Just go
sure.
Item over item.
You betcha. So the following feature cards have been added to the release view, targeting a release with Alpha 4.0. And again, this is just the first iteration. If you go back and you watch the roadmap roundups for the whole 323 development cycle, you'll know that a whole bunch of things got added. Yeah, some things got removed, but a whole bunch of things, and those things all just got pushed to a .x patch pretty much. But
that is so that's kind of like the age of Star Citizen that we're in. The age of CIG where they were in is they're not really taking moonshots anymore.
Yep.
They waited for 3 years to put server meshing and pyro in a release view. They've been very reserved about it. So the fact that they're saying this now, they're probably, whatever happens is going to kick it out the door.
Mm-hmm.
Or we'll stay in PTU for 6 months. Who knows?
So server
318
meshing
Mark 3, here we go.
Server meshing V1. And I wish that they had specified and said static server meshing. Because most people, the overwhelming majority of people,
the whole weird thing that Chris did.
Yeah, well, and most people don't have a freaking clue about the difference. And they think that, hey, this is server meshing and we're going to have massive increases in player counts and server performance, and we finally made it. It's like, well, no, this is the last step to the big leagues. The last step before we get there.
It does say server meshing V1, and if they take the server meshing V1 and do just a cursory glance of research, I know it's a big step for them. I don't know who I'm characterizing.
But
most people I know that even like look at Star Citizen will take the but if they do like a cursory glance or ask anyone who's followed the game, like server meshing V1, they'll pretty much get a pretty easy like static server meshing. It just does these couple features. It's not the full fat server meshing. Even people who don't follow too hard, not knowing the third tier of server meshing, they'll know that static.
I admire your optimism. Uh-oh. The camera.
I'm trying to be more optimistic and kind. Like that's my goal, because like I've been, I don't know, I get these like people, like these like not, what are they, like caricatures in my head of people in the community that don't exist, and I like hate them. But they don't exist. So I'm like trying to like get rid of those like weird people and like go on my actual like experience, and I haven't met a whole bunch of people who would look at the roadmap and like actually be here and not have any clue. Like either they actively are against the game, like they are looking into it to find something to hate because that's the world we live in, or they're here and they like, if they're asking a question, if they want to know, then they'll find an answer pretty quick.
Yeah. I think it's just confusing because in the last letter from the chairman, they called it, or it was the last one, the one before that, they said static server meshing, dynamic version 1, and then dynamic version 2. And now it says server meshing V1. And so it's like, hopefully that doesn't send the wrong message. But so the initial implementation
there
of
are
server
technically
meshing,
3 V's.
Yeah.
But they call it in the last letter not a V, and V1 and V2.
Mm-hmm. The initial implementation of server meshing enables multiple servers per shard, and they said multiple, so they didn't specify. And remember the server meshing minimum viable product example that they put out in there's a little like what's that called, like a timeline chart from a letter from the chairman almost 2 years ago now, that had the minimum viable product
which is now getting to the end of 2022. That's where we're at.
Yeah, as 2 servers per system, 2 for Pyro, 2 for Stanton. Now, that being said, a lot of it, when it comes to the server meshing tests that they did, a lot of people said I got a lot of feedback. I read a lot of feedback around the server meshing test, and a lot of people said the 400-person test, which I think because they did multiple different player counts at multiple different numbers of servers and a static mesh, and I think it was the 400 people across a 4-server mesh with just Stanton was really good. And after, especially like 200 to 400 people, but that's just Stanton, and that was 4 servers. So we shall see what configuration they end up going with the initial implementation. That said, when they started those tests, they did specifically say that it would be a long series of tests in the tech preview channel, and we haven't had any since early in, it was like early mid-March. So it's been over 2 months since we had a tech preview test.
I imagine after Xenothreat's over,
Yep, 100%.
it will be like, where's that idiom? I lost the idiom entirely. Basically, round the clock work. There we go. Round the clock work, and like just does this work? 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 And just constantly pushing out previews. Yeah. Jared has also said that we'll see the Pyro Playground before 4.0.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's
which makes sense because they, I think that they'll want to do that in order to test a lot of these things that we haven't gotten to test before.
I want to see that with the new anti-ganking mechanic.
Yeah, because the one we talked about with the monthly report, with the reputation-based hostility. Yeah, well, because that's the thing is we only got to test the inner half, and I find it hard to believe the idea that CIG would release the outer half and probably the more important half of Pyro without it being tested, in a tech preview build or a Pyro Playground build, because they want that wide launch.
I mean, it's gonna be through Evocati.
It will, but we've seen how everything goes through Evocati. It still comes out, things still come out broken. But if they can get a wider audience to it, it'll help with the polish more. So we'll see. But But the initial implementation of server meshing enables multiple servers per shard to improve load distribution, so spreading out the load of the server, and facilitates navigation between two solar systems. And that's the big deal. Is right now we have one server running all of the Stanton system, and managing the simulation for all 100 players and everything that's going on within the entity zones that the players are nearby. And so it means that the servers have to simulate a lot of crap. And by just adding additional server to split up the system, it reduces the load on an individual server substantially. Now, if you add more players, the thing is, if you have 100 players dispersed throughout Stanton and the server's having to simulate all of it, well, and then if you add 200 players, the chances are that most of the system wasn't already being simulated is pretty low. That's why they do these big events, because it concentrates players in an individual area. They can use that to optimize servers. But if all of Stanton is already if almost all of Stanton is already being simulated by the server, and then you add 200 more people, the server, now that load is not cut in half, but essentially dramatically lowered, because you've taken, you've got players, you've got player overlap essentially, and you're not adding more area to simulate. You're essentially just adding more connections to that simulation. And so it's a much more efficient process, even just by subdividing a system into two servers. And facilitates navigation between two solar systems. So, and they said that they handle the transition from server to server within a star system differently than from server to server across a jump point. It's a different way of handling those transitions, and handing off that entity authority as you transition from one to the other. So it's definitely something to be excited about, but this is the initial implementation. So it's going to be a rocky start, but it will be interesting to see, if we see server performance improvements, but also what else do they add besides Pyro that continues to, because they need to get the system in, but then they also need to stress that system. And so I think with the initial release, we'll probably see a more middle of the road player count and middle of the road server configuration. And then they'll ramp it up and see how far they can push static to get more data on high player counts in order to also stress the replication layer even more. But yeah.
Yep, makes sense. Because they're gonna need to figure out how to optimize, like, just as we've been spending the last 10 years trying to figure out how to optimize a single server. Now we need to figure out how to optimize configuration of servers so that the dynamic version is not just, somebody walked into a room, spawn a server. Somebody walked into the next room, spawn a server. So it's actually balancing itself for performance, not just throwing servers at the problem. Because that will get expensive.
Balancing performance and cost effectiveness. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Next one is Mission System Refactor. So if anyone played any of the server meshing tests, you'll know that the second you crossed a border, or even now in live, if the server gets recovered, you will lose all your mission progress. This is the system that fixes that, reworking the underlying mission system to become compatible with server meshing, allowing for easier creation and maintenance of mission content. This will also obviously make it so it can track you through boundaries of servers and hopefully a server crash, because it should be a mission service, not just run on the DGS.
Exactly. This is an example of services being moved off the DGS in order to make them more resilient, but also scalable. And this is like,
I'm pretty sure we had a mission service. That's not a clickable link. That's a nope. That's the companion guide. Why do they not have a clickable link to the roadmap? Oh, there it is.
Yeah,
it's the first link in the page.
Oh yeah, and up there.
It's the first link in the page. Yeah. Deliverables, mission.
But it's the, not only will this allow for if the server you're on crashes and it does the recovery, your missions won't go away. They'll be retained because they're running off of a service that's communicating not only with the server but also with you, just like the replication layer does. But also, this is what will allow for you to take a mission in this server in Stanton, but the objective is in this server in Pyro, and have missions, cross system boundaries, cross server boundaries. Because you whether it's in Pyro or on the other side of Stanton, it has to be able to cross server boundaries. And that's a big deal, because those are obviously a lot of the missions that you're going to be taking are local, and they do want you to, the big thing is they want to have a significant density of content within a planetary system, or smaller system, smaller local areas, because if they keep you in an area around a moon, around a planetary system, and not moving from server to server a lot, it reduces the amount of transitions and the amount of workload in doing all these handoffs, and so that's part of the reason they're doing that. What were you looking for?
So no, apparently there is not a mission service tile. That's what I was looking for.
There's not, but if you go back to the deliverable for server meshing and persistent entity streaming, you'll see a lot of work by the mission feature team.
Yeah, that is this feature that we're talking about. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, they've been working on this for a while.
But I thought there was specifically a service that would be running to keep track of players' missions.
Yeah, I'm surprised there isn't a deliverable, but at the same time, it'll probably get added once we get the new. Because if this is on the release view, it should have a deliverable that will be, or maybe it just falls under the server meshing one. We don't know.
Yeah, I think that's part of server meshing. What I was thinking is a specific service that deals with keeping track of players' missions, whether server meshed or not.
Yeah.
But I guess that specific service isn't a thing. It's just rolled into other things.
Mm-hmm.
Something like Atlas or something.
Well, and it could just be that it's rolled into the work for server meshing and persistent entity streaming. The replication layer separation is rolled into that.
It's got to be on one of the services that's not on the server, because it needs to be able to obviously transition across DGSs.
It might be like the replication layer separation falls under the hybrid service, so it might fall under the hybrid, because the hybrid service is a collection of services that are off the DGS or will be off the DGS.
I don't see where the hybrid went on the unofficial map.
I don't know. I don't know what they call it now. I've heard Benoit call it that. The replicant is an individual replication layer. So, continuing on, the transit system refactor reworking the transit system used for trams and elevators to be compatible with server meshing, as well as generally more robust. As we all know, the transit system has lots of issues. Elevators being out of sync, and falling through the planet, falling out into space, all that. The trams having issues moving about, but this is important because they have to be able to subdivide landing zones, because the anticipation is for landing zones to have significant draws of people. Imagine if you had Invictus launch week at Orison. Visit Orison. And there was 1,000 or 1,000 people in the system wanting to visit Invictus launch week, and they all went to the server that was running Crusader and the Crusader planetary system. Well, they need to be able to subdivide Orison into different servers as the population there grows, in order to make it so like because the tram has 3 main stops. The where the shopping and the habs are, where the Independence, Cloudview Center, the Independence platform, right? That's what it's called, the main platform, and then the I just stroked out and forgot the name
What's
of
Independence? It's Providence, Cloudview, and
Providence. There you go, Providence.
Station.
And then the space.
And then there's the not Bevic.
Yep. Yeah.
What's the event center called?
Huh.
I know Bevic by heart. Gosh dang it! Why?
But yeah. But they have to be able to. The tram system has to be able to move you from one server to another as they subdivide a landing zone.
What is it called?
That's part of why they moved those other event locations, for missions and such, away from Orison, in order to be able to put them into different entity zones around Crusader, so that way they could be streamed in and out and run more performantly.
I sent you an image.
You sent me an image. What'd you send me?
Invictus.
I want to go to our. How do I?
You want the timestamp for it?
Oh, there we go. Yeah, that's Bevic.
You talk about large populations. That's like it. I constantly keep that in mind. Like, it could.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Is
imagine get that kind of player count.
Well, and
basically,
NPCs.
This is like 5 servers right in front of us.
Yeah, and NPCs is the NPC population is restricted right now because of server performance. Well, when they can subdivide it a lot, and
I hope they get a crowd service or a crowd system running that can do lightweight subsumption, that can basically incorporate subsumption entities into it. So subsumption NPCs, and then it will simulate a crowd, not their routines, and then they'll basically have enter and exit points, and that way we can get this super dense crowd with subsumption AI running through it. Highly doubt it, but it's a thought I had.
Yeah. Well, remove a lot of the other more complex logic, and then have them enter into here, and we simply reduce you to to just the crowd logic, for this duration.
Boyd.
And then,
we just need NPC Boyds.
Yeah, humanoid Boyds.
Humanoid Boyds.
But yeah,
yep.
That's the trans system refactor.
All right. Now we get into the fun ones. Pyro 1. in a long list of what we're going to be talking about. Basically, we're going to be now going through the entire Pyro system, planet by planet, moon by moon. So Pyro 1. Pyro 1 is the first planet from the sun of the Pyro system. Its thick, high-pressure atmosphere hides a strange landscape beset by powerful winds and lightning strikes. Under the clouds, there is an ecosystem of plants and animals that endure its extremely high temperatures, even during powerful solar flares. So this is the planet closest to the sun, and somehow there is life.
Yeah. Well, and like Paul brought this up on his stream. It's not habitable for humans. You can go there with the right protective equipment, but
which one does the whip
uninhabitable doesn't mean that other things can't live there. It just means that we can't live there without protective equipment or under certain conditions.
Which one does the whip crab live on?
I don't know if we know. I don't know if we know where its domain is in Pyro. I don't know if we have that information specifically yet. It might be one of the two predators that they're working on in the latest monthly report.
It does have abandoned facilities on it, though.
Yeah.
Mining outposts in service, allowing Spyro's population to attempt to utilize the planets before the facilities were abandoned close to the 26th century. Interesting.
But yeah,
anyway, next one.
Microtech is habitable because it's, we can exist there. Hurston is habitable because we can exist there, but
less so every day.
Yeah. So, Pyro 2, Monox. Monox, Pyro 2, is the second planet from the sun of the Pyro system, nicknamed Monox for the deadly carbon monoxide in its atmosphere. It has a temperate climate and was seen as a viable candidate for terraforming shortly after its discovery. Now, carbon monoxide is different than carbon dioxide. When both of them in two great... carbon monoxide is very bad for humans. Like real bad. But high concentrations of carbon dioxide are also bad for humans. But carbon monoxide, what happens is you breathe it in, and it has a really strong affinity for your red blood cells. And so all this carbon monoxide will bind to your red blood cells and prevent oxygen from binding your red blood cells. So you are breathing in air, but you're not getting any oxygen. And you suffocate while breathing. And so carbon monoxide poisoning kills lots of people every year in the U.S. and around the world because of failing furnaces and stuff like that, or from fires and what have you. But that's why it's like there is an atmosphere there, and you could breathe it for a short period of time. But if you breathe it for more than too long and then don't get treatment, it will kill you real fast. So it is definitely not a habitable planet. But the climate is temperate, so it's not like freezing cold or super hot. So you wouldn't need you'd need a rebreather, some sort of air source, but you wouldn't necessarily need a lot of other environmental protection. However, its proximity to the system's volatile sun made it dangerous for human habitation. So, again, the solar flares. And the United Nations of Earth refused to clear it for terraformation, instead allowing corporations to harvest its natural resources. Undeterred by the potential risk, outlaws eventually took up residence on the planet when the last corporations pulled out of Pyro in the 26th century. Northern Trooper, I am joking. Children don't do this. Adults, I'm not your parent. I take it to help me sleep. Yeah, that will give you the that forever nap. And it's really, carbon monoxide binds really hard to your red blood cells and doesn't let go. Like the definitive treatment for it, especially for high levels of carbon monoxide poisoning, is putting people in oh gosh, it's what they put divers in to treat the bends.
Compression tube.
It's a big old chamber.
Atmosphere
Yeah,
tank.
well they increase the pressure really high. Yeah, hyperbaric chamber. Thank you. Yeah, hyperbaric. And that's the definitive treatment for it, because you can flood people with oxygen and it will take forever for the carbon monoxide to unbind from your red blood cells. But yeah, that's Pyro 2.
I wonder if we're getting the whip crab on launch of Pyro.
I will honestly be disappointed if we don't. But I think that with the launch of 4.0 and Pyro, I think we will probably, if we just got our first Boyd and our first Predator, I think we'll probably get at least 2 of each NPC fauna. You know, what, like 2 Predator, 2 Prey, and as well as multiple Boyds. So, Aether Drift. No, we're barely
hilarious.
into the Roadmap Roundup.
What did we got? We're in like the one. We're on the 5th one, bud. You're basically at the beginning. What are we at? Hour and 10 minutes in. All right. Bloom. Pyro 3 Bloom. Bloom Pyro 3 is the 3rd planet from the sun of the Pyro system, cold but naturally habitable. It became an epicenter of mining endeavors in Pyro. Pyrotechnic Amalgamated and other corporations constructed multiple staging sites, employees, barracks, and processing centers that were used until the cost of their maintenance could no longer be offset by mining profits. Abandoned when the last active corporation in Pyro ceased operation there in the late 26th century, they were claimed by squatters, outlaws, and former miners who lacked the means to return to the United Empire of Earth.
It's pretty wild that they abandoned those people there. Like, that's just nuts. You know, you think your job is bad.
Like,
you know, these people took a job on a refinery in the North Sea or something, and then or an oil derrick, and got left there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, that's the biggest thing that CIG has not translated very well into the game, is how terrible the environment and society we live in. Like, actually, I should not say society, because actually society is rather good. Like, there's a lot of activists, there's a lot of news orgs that actually care about their job. It's specifically the mega corporations that are just the absolute grime of the earth. It is.
Yeah, some of them are.
It's shocking how much just it's actually a weird dichotomy between people actually love their job. There's actually a lot of happy people that live and we hear stories about. Not a lot of people are complaining about their lot in life in all the lore we have. You'll have people who live on the throes of the Magnus in all of its economy roads. I'm like, yep, this is what we live in. You upset? Of course I'm upset, but what are we gonna do? That's kind of the idea for people who are without. And people who have, it's just well, I have all this money, I should use it. But the megacorps specifically are we're gonna take human resources and apply that actually. So you actually have decent people with terrible companies, which is slightly different from today when you have terrible people and terrible companies. So society is actually pretty positive. So we're on to Pyro 4 now.
Correct.
You're a Pyro 4.
I just read Bloom. Oh, wait, no, you read Bloom.
My bad.
Sorry. I'm having a stroke. Sorry. Pyro 4. Pyro 4
no, don't do that.
is the outermost moon of Pyro 5, and astronomers theorize that it was once the fourth planet from the sun of the Pyro system. At some point before humans discovered Pyro, a massive celestial body collided with Pyro 4. I am looking forward to seeing how they artify that, what it looks like. Catastrophically warping its landscape, destroying its atmosphere, and knocking it into the orbit of nearby gas giant Pyro 5. Although the tectonic activity that resulted from this impact has quieted and a new atmosphere has formed, Pyro 4 is far from stable. It is on a long, slow collision course with Pyro 5 and will one day either crash into it or break up into a ring.
Now, I'm no scientist.
I'm something of a scientist myself.
They're basing the name of this moon on perhaps they saw some rocks that looked kind of like a big enough impact to say this was a former. Why not just name it where it is, not where you think it was? So like, this is completely a lore, like me against the lore scientists here. Like, it's a moon. Sure, it might have been like the sun back in the day, but we're not going to call it Pyro because it's not the sun anymore. It's just the moon of Pyro 5.
Yeah, why is it Pyro 4 and not, this is Pyro 4 and this is Pyro 4A? I don't know.
Like, it's just like, I just have, if I ever get a chance to like interact with scientists in the game, like this is gonna be like that. What the heck is this? What is this? I'm gonna be so upset.
I'm interested to see what its atmosphere is like, since it did form a new atmosphere.
Mm-hmm. And it formed a new atmosphere, and they're like, it probably didn't have one. I understand you're scientists and you probably took readings. Honestly, if you just came up with this theory and like ran with it, you'd probably be famous anyway, so you probably didn't need to check anyway. But it's here, it's got its atmosphere, and it's the moon of Pyro 5. Why the flip are you calling it 4? I have such a problem with this, apparently. I don't understand. Okay. Pyro 5. Honorary Pyro 4. Pyro 5 is the fourth planet. God dang it, I hate it so much. It's the fourth planet from the sun of the Pyro system. It was given the classification of Pyro 5 when researchers came across strong evidence its outermost moon once maintained a stable orbit around the system's star between Pyro 3 and Pyro 5. When it was struck by an unknown celestial body, it was knocked into Pyro 5's gravitational sphere of influence. Residents of and travelers through the Pyro system are known to harvest hydrogen from Pyro 5's green and yellow atmosphere. I don't think I'll ever recover from this. Like that's it's just a moon, guys. It's just a moon. Everything is low Earth orbit. Game devs, not scientists, nerds. Well, they consult,
to be fair,
actual astrophysicists for these things.
And
they
that's
told us multiple times.
Hybert's background is. That's what her degree is in.
Freaking heck.
Yeah.
Like, they do their school and then they either say, or to actually take it. But I'm talking about specifically, I don't have a problem with the writers. This is an awesome, like, lore piece from the writer's perspective. It used to be here, but it's now there. It's story. There's something there. There's some history before you knew it. But the scientists inside Star Citizen that showed up to the system and said, we think that was over there. We're going to name that 4 anyway. But it's currently there. Why screw up the order?
Yeah, why name it after what it
in the description.
Anymore?
Pyro 5 is the 4th planet. Oh, jeez.
They just want people to get lost in game. It's fine. They'll get lost. Like, wait a minute. This
Lost
is
so much for your end.
Yeah.
Chronos.
All right.
It's in Chronos. Okay.
Pyro 6. And this is the big one. Because obviously, like in the Pyro Playground, we had up through Pyro 3. We didn't have Pyro 4A. We didn't have Pyro 4.
I'm
we didn't
gonna
have
vote
Pyro 6.
that
5,
this is
Terminus.
the planet with. Sorry, this is the planet with pyro crabs, because Terminus, what are they called? In Helldivers. Terminids, big bug whip crab. It's on Terminid.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of.
It could be.
Man, looking at conspiracy theories.
And it's way out there. So Terminus, Pyro 6 is the outermost world of the Pyro system. Its nitrogen oxygen atmosphere is technically breathable, but it contains high enough amounts of methane and carbon dioxide that has a negative effect on one's health after extended exposure. So you can walk around without a helmet on and breathe the air, but if you do it for long enough, it'll start to have negative effects on you. So if you,
and by negative, he means psychedelic vision. Yeah, choose your pick.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they end up simulating it in game. But like, you breathe out, you breathe in oxygen, you breathe out carbon dioxide. You breathe in, your body takes on the oxygen, and you exhale carbon dioxide. Well, if you're breathing in carbon dioxide as well, it messes with all your little body sensors that tell you to continue to breathe, and so it will screw you up.
What does methane do to the lungs and the brain?
That I don't know, because we generally don't run into people breathing methane. But when your concentrations of carbon dioxide get up too high in your blood, it tells you to stop. It makes you want to breathe more and more and more, which makes the process worse and worse and worse, and then it makes you really confused and agitated, and yeah. So, but I mean, you could technically breathe it for a little while. So if your ship crashes there and you run out of air in your suit, you continue to breathe the air for a little bit if you need to, in order to get to some place where someone can rescue you or something like that. Pyrotechnic Amalgamated placed their main hub of operations in orbit around Terminus, later abandoning the station when they left the system. That's Ruin Station. Ruin Station is in orbit around Terminus. And also, if you go to the Galactopedia, you can look at all the articles for the Pyro system. And Terminus is where there's like the different pirate organizations have bases there that they use for staging attacks against Xenothreat, and when they're trying to retake Ruin Station. So
I wonder
Terminus
if they're gonna
will be a battleground.
I wonder if they're gonna do a system for control over Ruin, where there'll be every time like an organization gets like a reputation or resources or what have you, whatever the trigger point is for the dynamic event, and it will trigger it to assault on Ruin Station, and it will dynamically be taken over by these gangs constantly fighting over it.
Yeah, eventually, we'll see how they end up doing it, but I think it'll be interesting to see what sort of missions you get to, kind of like the Xenothreat mission where you're trying to get supplies to the UE to repel Xenothreat. Well, I imagine you're going to get missions to bring supplies or even pirates to these different pirate bases in order to build it up and get ready, and then they'll send out an attack. And that's
I imagine if we have another Xenothreat after this next one, then it will be from both sides, and there'll be a pre-Xenothreat in Pyro to get Xenothreat ready for their engagement.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be Terminus will be an interesting place to visit because they not only did those
Interesting and
apparently did
heavy
those
quotes.
yeah well and yeah a lot of work to be had there, but also because all those pirates have their own staging bases there, there's a lot of inter clan gang conflict going on there. So it's as much as
And best part
Ruin
is,
Station is a battleground,
doesn't
the
matter
planet
who you
below
are.
it is.
It doesn't matter who you are. You still need to eat and drink water, which means cargo hauling's got a job.
Yep, beans, bullets, band-aids.
Hi.
All right, next.
All right, Ignis. I believe it's Latin for fire. Ignis is the innermost moon of the gas giant Pyro 5 Honorary 4 Pyro system. The multiple I almost said crayons, multiple canyons and dry riverbeds on the surface suggest that liquid water once flowed there in the distant past. What was that?
And crayons, you say? I'm going there.
He has multiple crayons. It has not just one, it has multiple crayons.
I must find them.
Its frigid average temperature and deadly atmosphere of dioxide. Sulfur dioxide, ouch. Creates an unfriendly environment for those who lack proper protective equipment. Nonetheless, the moon sometimes sees visitors seeking to resupply their air reserves thanks to the small amount of oxygen in the atmosphere. Those filters are working overtime if that's where you're getting your oxygen from. Ouch. Sulfur is not a nice gas. It's very corrosive, and it doesn't like being filtered out.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they make that work with the life support system and going there, flying into the room system around that planet with the atmosphere, and use how does that let you tank refill your oxygen reserves for your life support system. So, Vatra is the second moon from the gas giant Pyro 5 Pyro system. Its thick, high-pressure atmosphere of nitrogen and methane supports an ecosystem of plants that subsist on hydrocarbons instead of carbon dioxide. Some water is present on Vatra in the form of ice, in the form of ice, but is too cold on the surface for it to exist in a liquid state. Next. More plants. More fauna.
Romanian, I believe that one is.
A deer.
Vatra.
I don't know.
I'm looking them up as we go through them because they're fire or fire. That's one apparently. Vatra is fireplace in Romanian apparently.
Oh.
These are all like words for fire in different languages, so I'm just gonna go through them as we go through them. Because Veer is an interesting one. I think it's like German or something. So we're at a deer.
Yep.
Okay. Adir is the third moon from the gas giant Pyro 5 Honorary 4 Pyro system. Jagged mountains and rocky hills dominate the crater-ridden landscape because it lacks a protective atmosphere that would otherwise break apart most approaching celestial objects. Its surface sees frequent impacts. The air is permeated with fine particles of dust that are generated during these events. So it's basically the moon with a bit more gravity.
I want that to happen. I want to be on the moon and be able to see things falling from the sky and landing on the surface and have it go poof. That would be cool.
I mean, if we remember the trash falling out of the sky in that one Squadron demo.
Yep.
A deer is not fire.
Doe.
The first thing it pulls up.
Female deer.
No, not. God dang it. The first thing it pulls up is Jewish for strong one.
Huh. Interesting.
I wonder if it's some other language.
Let's see. Fyro is the fourth moon from the gas giant Pyro 5 in the Pyro system. A hotbed of seismic activity, Pyro experiences frequent earthquakes that disturb its deep oceans of brackish water. Are we going to actually experience these earthquakes? Is that going to be a thing? Not in this first release, but I hope it's a thing. I want to be able to walk around on the moon and all of a sudden feel it. Whoa, the moon has an unusual ecosystem that thrives both on the surface and under the sea. Under the sea, you say? Supported by the carbon dioxide and nitrogen in Pyro's dense atmosphere. That'll be an interesting place to visit. There's, the unusual ecosystem. Are they hinting at the first underwater fauna? On to you for Fuego.
What language does it mean fire? Okay, so Fire is German. Fire. Borrowed from English. Okay, so it's German from English. Fire. Sure. That's how words work. Fuego. But if you don't know what Fuego is, then you haven't been to the market and you haven't bought Takis, and you're missing out because you should go eat Takis. They're little they're like Doritos if they were spicy like pepper spicy and rolled up into a tube. So good.
Nummy.
I'm also kind of allergic to corn, so that works out well. So basically, I just die the next day after eating Takis. It's fine. They're good. Fuego. Fuego is the fifth moon from the gas giant Pyro 5 on Ray 4. Pyro system relatively temperate, but still cold. It has a mostly carbon dioxide atmosphere with small percentage of nitrogen, sulfur dioxide, and oxygen. High amounts of iron sulfide in its soil gives its surface a yellowy and black appearance. Infamous smuggler group, the headhunters often utilize Fuego as a stash point for goods during their nascent years in the early 26th century or early 2600s.
That will be
This
fun
is the place where I'm going to be spending
stashes.
most of my time because I love the aesthetic of these mountains. Just holy crap. Because that was in the playground, and I beelined it for there. It's so cool. It was the yellow and black one.
No. In its soil. The yellow stuff was like a moss lichen plant thing. The plant that was Pyro 3 is the one that had the yellow lichen
Didn't say
stuff.
anything about yellow bits. Bloom.
Yeah. Bloom. That was Bloom. We didn't have Pyro the Pyro 5, 4, and all its moons in the Pyro Playground.
Oh yeah, first arrival, but yep, I'm watching the video now. Yep, yep, that's Pyro 3. So what's the difference between the landscape of Pyro 3 and Fuego?
Fuego has it's in the soil. It's not the plant life that makes it look like that. I just looking for the smuggler stashes. That'll be fun. Go looking for smuggler stashes.
Former, they're not they don't care about them anymore.
Yeah.
So loot for us.
Ver is the sixth moon from the gas giant Pyro 5 Pyro system. Thanks to an increased greenhouse effect in its dense carbon dioxide atmosphere, it is unusually warm for a moon so distant from its sun. Its carbon-rich soil supports forms of vegetation that utilize crystalline carbon in their base structures. Before the system was overtaken by outlaws in the early 27th century, these plants were a popular subject of research among botanists. Go and find samples, bring back to botanists in Retor system. Here you go. Science gameplay, exploration.
Apparently farming methane might be a good way to get water in Pyro according to Danger Hobo. Burning it yields CO2 and H2O.
Yeah, could be.
We've seen the stupid Star Wars tower, the oxygen, whatever they're called, condenser Star Wars towers in Pyro. So that's probably what they're doing.
All right.
All right. Pyro space stations. Adding rundown rest stop stations to these Pyro system, which provides basic services such as repair, sustenance, and commerce.
And we got to
Just
see
basic
a number of those in the
stuff.
Pyro Playground. And if I remember the information correct, I forget where it came out of, but there's a total of 26 rundown stations in Pyro. But only
sounds about
11
right.
of them were occupied. The other 15 that are part of are derelict. So there's nearly as many stations in Pyro as there are in Stanton, but less than half of them are occupied. So that alone means there's a lot less infrastructure for us. A, the system's twice as big. B, you have a system twice as big with fewer stations and with reputation-based hostility. You won't have the reputation to go to all the stations at once, most likely. So, Outpost Colonialism, a small home for AI to live and shelter. They consist of a central hub and a few optional internal and external modules. They provide the basic necessities to support a small group of people for an indefinite amount of time. And we've seen some of these already. I'm just looking forward to seeing where else they are in the system and what new ones they've added. Because I want to say there was a total of like 52 total is the number that they had last talked about. And that's the occupied ones, not the derelict outposts.
Nice. Jump points. One of the big ones kind of hidden it among all the rest. Implementing the first jump point into the persistent universe, connecting the Stanton system and Pyro systems together. Includes necessary vehicle items and functionalities, the jump points themselves and their inner tunnels, which they're still kind of nailing down last we heard on how exactly the deltas at either end work.
Yep. Interesting that they said includes necessary vehicle items. So that's part of the resource management.
Now, they've gone back and forth on this over the years. What is the jump module? Or is it a jump drive or is it a jump module that is on the quantum drive? Because the original concept art was this kind of like big module that sat on top of the quantum drive. But we've also heard them talk about a jump drive that is separate. Because in lore, a jump drive is a quantum drive that somebody's hit with a wrench too many times. Basically how they found the first jump point.
Yeah, that's how they found it on accident. And that, like, when they first commercialized them, it was just a module that you put onto your quantum drive or a modification that was done. And now they're sold with them. That's going to be the question, is how you go about swapping out your jump drive. How does the jump drive matter? You know, what does it do? Because that's the other thing is jump points are entirely a mystery to us. You know, and are they going to reveal that mystery to us in terms of, like, do jump point sizes matter? And if they do, how do they matter? What does the jump drive do for us to go into the jump point? You know, how does all this stuff has only been talked about vaguely, and we don't know how it works. So this is probably one of the bigger reveals gameplay wise coming in the near future, in terms of we don't fucking know because they haven't told us shit. You know, they're just sort of like, well, maybe it's this, maybe it's that, and it's like, all right, well, time to finally let the cat out of the bag.
I think that's the biggest question to the wider game we don't have, the game we don't have, and the answer we don't have, which is, what does jump size mean?
Yeah.
Because you and Paul have commented on it many times. Like, the lore does not line up with what jump point sizes you guys have been putting on the maps. Like, why is there a kingship here? Why is there a bangle going from here to here? Like, these don't make sense. What does it mean? Does it just mean you have to be careful? Does it just mean you gotta do better? Do you have to have a lead ship? What is it?
Shori Katsuni says, at this point, the jump drives are separate from the quantum drives, right? I don't know. I honestly haven't looked.
That's what they've gone back and forth.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like on your vehicle manager app, they're separate, but on the ship, with the physical component, is it just here's the quantum drive and you open it up and you can remove the jump module from the top, like in the concept art? We don't know where they're going with it. For me, it would make sense for it to be separate or adjacent or something like that, because if your quantum drive, if your jump drive takes a hit, you still want to be able to quantum, like so. But
and with quantum boosting being introduced, like there's a lot more use to your quantum drive than just point A to B. Like it's also just moving out of the way. It's basically how you disengage completely. And with quantum boosting, it's not like quantum jumping where they can just follow you into the next jump. The amount of times been hunted down is so stupid. But with quantum jumping, they can hunt you down. But with quantum boosting, they can't, because they have no idea on what point between you and infinite you're ending your travel.
Yeah, it'll be. I'm looking forward to the ISC on that.
Your ship does not list a jump drive, you can't jump. Honestly, that's probably right. They just probably have to add a few to them. But we have plenty of ships in game that do not have quantum drive that should, decently have quantum drives. I'm looking at you, MPUV. You should definitely have a quantum drive for no good reason other than I want to fly it around everywhere.
No, I think he's saying if it doesn't have a jump drive listed, it can't jump.
Yeah, but no, I'm saying we have the next step down reference, which is we have ships that don't have a quantum drive. So if we have ships that have quantum drive, we're gonna have ones that have quantum but not jump.
My idea is that the jump point, the commercial jump point, should have a gate at the most stable place to enter that jump point, and that's where the infrastructure is. But anywhere like within an area around that jump point, if you have your own jump drive, you can access the jump tunnel, the jump point. And that way, if you have a ship that doesn't have a jump drive, that would be a
great way.
You go through the gate.
That would, and we could have our infrastructure in our locations with our jump rings that they're trying to take away from us.
Well, and if you don't, if you use the ring, well, the ring opens up the jump point for you, and you're not using your energy, your fuel, blah blah blah. Make it a fuel intensive thing to do it, not using the infrastructure, and that way,
I really want my jump rings. I don't freaking care what kind of nonsense they put. I want my jump rings.
Yeah, that's just like
that's like peak sci-fi to me. Like that's just some giant ring in the middle of nowhere. Like the amount of impatience I have
could be blockaded, but they couldn't blockade the whole jump point. That's the thing is you could blockade the jump,
But rings being blockaded are like a cornerstone of sci-fi.
Yeah,
that's and everyone has a blockade. There is not a single sci-fi that I know of that doesn't have some point of very stupid blockade. Like they've blockaded, like in Stargate when the blockades on the north side of the planet and the ghoul could have just stinking gone around, right? Stupid blockades. Every sci-fi has stupid blockades. Star Wars did the same crap.
Yeah, and if you had this whole giant area in space, that is where you can anywhere in this massive space you can access the jump point via your jump drive, then it's easy to circumnavigate the blockade.
I didn't get far enough in the expanse to them to set up a blockade. I know. I'm like,
shame.
Aren't they like rebooting it again anyway?
Shame.
Yeah, I deserve. I got basically till right after Martian Girl turns.
Yeah, North End Trooper.
As far as I got.
This is not going to look good on his angle.
71, that's all I made it. Wow. Okay.
So
See you guys
on
later.
May 21st,
good run.
2024 at midnight Eastern time, you said, can you clarify these statements for us? But yeah, that's my thought for jump points. Let's see. Did you read that one or did I read that one?
Which one was it?
Jump points.
Jump points. That would be me. So you're on solar burst.
Okay. Solar bursts are dangerous
You now
natural
have
disasters that happen regularly around older stars like Pyro. In these instances, older stars like Pyro, I bet you they're going to reuse this mechanic in multiple places across the verse. In these instances, the sun erupts with a high energy particle wave generated from its surface, traveling at 15% the speed of light through the entire star system. This dangerous high energy particle wave can be avoided by hiding behind other objects that are big enough: planets, moons, space stations, bigger ships, etc. It'll also be interesting to see how they incorporate shielding into this, because that was one thing that they talked about long ago, is having the appropriate shields. So maybe it's something like you have to charge up your shields or what have you. Who knows? The part that's interesting to me is how fast does it travel at 15% the speed of light? Because quantum travel for us is only supposed to be at 0.2 c, but we know that we go faster than that in game, because otherwise it would take us a long time to cross Stanton. So is it going 15% the speed of light actually, and we're going faster, or are we going 0.2 c gamified and it's going to go 0.15 c gamified? So you could outrun it by a little bit, but
oh my
not
god,
a
that
lot.
would be so good. That would be so
you're like running
that
away
would
from
be a
it to
thing.
then do a hard 90 behind a moon,
How far does a solar blast go?
Yeah, does it dissipate?
Because like that totally become a thing where people like racers line up and see who can outrun the solar flare. Okay, so according to, again, this is only the data we have. According to Urkel, Gladius does not have a jump drive, which makes sense to me because
if you're a carrier-based fighter, why the F would you have a jump drive?
Exactly. Now, where is Mr. Oh, that's right. He doesn't do not out ships. All
right.
No, okay, so he doesn't list one for the Carrick either. All right. Yep. I was just making sure. He does not lift jump drives at all, so I have to look for somewhere else. Life support. Implementing the first iteration of onboard life support systems in ships, which entails a ship component that generates breathable gas when turned on, and management of said life support component within the vehicle loadout manager. Woot! I'm super psyched for that one. Which leads directly into the next one, engineering.
Yep. Engineering allows players to manage, maintain, and repair various ship systems. Players can assume different roles that each provide a unique gameplay loop. With engineering gameplay, players have to contend with item degradation, malfunctions, and power management. This is, besides medical gameplay, this is one of the things I am most hyped about. Is having the depth of multi-crew gameplay that comes with engineering and life support. Being able to, and so here's another question for me is, with life support and engineering, will that change? Are they going to remove soft death when that occurs? How is soft death going to work with engineering until we have Maelstrom?
where is Maelstrom? Like we have no barometer on where it is and how far along it is.
Yeah, that's because soft death was meant to be the interim until resource management and Maelstrom come in order to get to the point where we don't fake it. Now that we have the engineering component, are we still gonna fake it? Or is are we just not faking the disabling portion, but the destruction portion of the ship we're still going to fake? I don't know. Back to you for charge and drain, which is very exciting.
Okay, so SC tools, or the wiki has jump drives, so look through there. Start looking through there. The Mark II, the ES also has a jump drive listed, a size 2 jump drive. So you guys start looking through there for who has a jump drive and who doesn't. Charge and drain. This one I'm super psyched about because it has a lot of functionality stuff we already have. Adding the ability for players to drain, store, and charge objects with power using the multi-tool. So basically like a battery bank. Includes the ability to overcharge objects and also remove distortion damage. So basically distortion damage can be finally left in and stop. Like, we're going to add it, we're going to remove it, we're going to nerf it, we're going to buff it. Just leave it in now.
Go and hoover up the distortion
part of
from the component, and now it turns back on.
Hoover the distortion, because this is part of engineering. So the multi-tool is going to be even more multi-toolrous. Sure. Now it's going to remove distortion and also give and drain power, energy, whatever they want to use to quantify how many energy units you're moving. Stuff
Makes
that
me wonder if there
energy.
will be a dedicated tool for that, or other tools with more power storage.
It's called a cable.
What, like,
it's called a cable.
A two-handed tool, a battery pack,
If it doesn't come in the backpack, I'm going to be very upset. But
yeah, because they're just saying the multi-tool.
MPV,
little hand tool.
STV, both run on batteries. The tractor beam, the big tractor beam, runs on a battery. The little tractor beam runs on a battery. So all this stuff is going to need power. There are little chargy ports on a little device that is just aesthetic in the Carrack. So maybe we get functionality for charging ports for tools and ships eventually. But this is specifically the ability to charge and drain stuff.
Yeah, because all those tools have batteries.
Gameplay.
I would imagine that I guess I wonder, are we going to have the ability to charge those batteries without using the multi-tool? Is there going to be a charging station? Are you going to be able to plug them into, like that thing in the Carrack? Because if you're just using one multi-tool to charge another multi-tool, how does the original multi-tool get charged? But also, I'm assuming this comes with the... assuming this is coming with the fact that
if they want
your tools will require battery power. Because right now they just have infinite power.
If they want to do it badly, it's something with a power plant charges a battery. You then take the power from the battery into the multi-tool. You then bestow that onto whatever you're charging. If they want to do it badly. With stuff specifically like the C2 and transport ships, the Liberator is included in here, there should definitely be a vehicle-specific hookup. Like they did all that work on Rope Tech. There should definitely be a roll on my vehicle and I plug it into the ship and it's now part of the grid. But there should be no reason why I'm like, okay, roll back on the Steve, and now for the duration of flight, I am sucking power from the battery and trying to charge up my vehicle by hand. I should just be able to plug it in. So hopefully that becomes a thing.
We shouldn't just be throwing away our batteries from all our different tools. Like, imagine you're doing your two-handed salvage, mining track. You're moving a bunch of cargo, and you're just constantly reloading batteries, and you got to pile up dead batteries on the ground. versus putting them back in your backpack and then, dropping them into the charging station back on the ship when you get done. But that's the balancing. Everybody's like, well, if we have tractor beams, then why do I need this or that or whatever? And it's like, because tractor beams take battery power, and you won't have infinite ammo for your two-handed tractor beam, or even your one-handed one. Hand mining, you're not going to be able to hand mine forever because it requires battery power.
Anyone who deals watch your gameplay. If you deal with cargo containers, force yourself to get good at the mule. You're gonna need it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's gonna be a thing.
Yep.
All right, so you with multi-tool updates. Speaking of,
raising the multi-tool up to the standard from Squadron 42. Yes, much excited. I love all the tools. Anything that is the yellow.
I wish it was not so one tool to rule them all, and was more a tool for every purpose.
That's why I like the two-handed tools. Like, I will take I love the two-handed tools, but I'm looking forward to having more differentiation between them. The one-handed, attach this module to do this and that should be dramatically weaker than the two-handed one, and right now it's not.
Unless you're doing cargo. If you're moving cargo with a multi-tool compared to the industrial tractor, it is so aggravating to try and maneuver boxes, especially once you get over one SCU.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're tossing them with the industrial one. You're like,
yep,
with the multi-tool. Like, it is so slow and very you have to babysit every inch with the multi-tool. It's
Mm-hmm. With additional functionality like it says cutting. And we've seen the repair as well. Now, I'm assuming they're talking about the repair for repairing components, and it's just a repair beam. And updates like improved handling, integrated UI, and the use of batteries to operate it. There we go, batteries. I'm hoping that this applies to the other tools as well. And it's not just, the one-handed tool.
Does this mean we're getting cutting in 4.0?
Yeah, that's what I want to know. Is cutting tier 2 coming with 4.0? Because it says with additional functionality we have cutting right now. There's a cutting tool. You just can't use it for anything. It doesn't do anything yet.
Oh no, is used for that one mission, the down Comrade.
Yeah.
To do the little lock bits.
And it says for specific scenarios.
The grates. Yeah, the grates in DCs. I don't know if you've been in the tubes in the DCs.
Oh yeah.
But they look awfully like they're cutting potential.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that are being added in game and will continue to be added in game that are meant to be cut. And that's why it says for specific scenarios. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what those are, because there's one thing that I talked about in my my boarding video is how you make entry. And I love all the different ways that they have planned to make entry, whether you blow it open with a breaching charge, whether you cut it open with a cutting tool, whether you use a hacking tool, whether you charge an unpowered door to then give it power.
I just thought of
and then open it.
Ship.
Someone say hacking.
A really stupid kamikaze ship that you're not exploding, but the entire ship's purpose is basically the size of Aurora or smaller. Your entire job is to get to a big ship and maglock to the side of it. The ship is just there to keep you with the capital ship. Nothing else. So it's just a little parasite in the side. Maybe there's a door under it that opens up and you can cut into the thing from inside your ship. But basically it's just there to lock on and shut off the ship so that you have zero signature. So you can do the whole Millennium Falcon out with the trash thing. It was a good idea. Okay, so fire hazard. This one couples with the next one again. Fire Hazard implementing the Fire Hazard system, which which tracks fire and temperature on static and dynamic objects. For the initial release, fire will be set up on a select few vehicles.
Only a select few.
The Reclaimer, because the Reclaimer is their test ship. We have no idea which ones the next ones will be, but it'll go onto the stack of things they need to do when they rework ships. Which I imagine there'll be a year or two of the vehicle team basically saying, nope, no more ships. It's 1.0 time. We're fixing all the ships.
Yeah.
So, because before 1.0, everything in the game needs to be of gold standard, right?
Yep.
So, I imagine every ship will be touched
ships, but they'll dedicate a lot of a good amount of resources.
Focus on it to get it done before 1.0.
Yep.
Yeah. Which I imagine they're trying to get ahead of it now with going back and reworking stuff like the Freelancer. So they don't have so much to do when it comes to, hey, 1.0's in a year, 2 years, and we need to freaking get it done. Because they have a lot of big ships to do. And they also need to get those done. So Orion, Kraken, and all those, they need to get done. Endeavor, Merchantman, like those are like the biggest ships on the docket, I think. There's big, but it's like not a lot in. Anyway, to go with the Fire Hazard, we have Fire Extinguisher. With tree.
Oh, sorry. Yep. All tasks required to implementing functioning fire extinguishers in game. This feature will work alongside the fire hazard system. And the fire extinguishers have their little charging stations too. Now the question is, like, will those just get added in random places onto ships, or is that something that you can buy and like a poster or whatever else you slap it right up here?
They are on ships. The C1 has one on the gate. It is so the button panel looking out of the ship. The button panel is on the right, but there's a charging station for the fire extinguisher on the left.
Nice.
So it is not something you can buy and slap on your ship, unfortunately.
But I want to.
I know. Maybe there'll be extra ones. Maybe there's like an SCU box you can get that has a fire extinguisher on it. You just have that in your cargo hold. That'd be cool. Some sort of like fire extinguisher device. Next is MFD rework and new displays. Rebuilding the multifunction displays in building blocks, including new designs, functionality, and customizable options. This update also includes a select number of updated ship HUDs, giving greater visibility as well as manufacturer-based visual overhaul.
Squadron ships.
Yeah.
And maybe a few others.
Squadron UI.
Yeah, it's the squadron ships and maybe a few others that they've gotten done as far as these are the test beds for the ones outside of squadron, an additional Aegis ship, an additional Anvil ship, what have you.
Yep.
The Kazi Grazer. Yep. This is our first, our second fauna and our first non-predator fauna. And I have fingers crossed that we will see more.
More importantly, herd animal.
Yeah, and herd animal.
What is it? Farm animal.
Yeah, they're livestock, they're herd animals, they're oh gosh, what's the word?
Poultry.
There's another word for animals that hang out in flocks and herds and what have you. And it's like saying they're social. Gregarian. They're gregarian creatures. These large warm-blooded herd animals.
Most importantly, our first glimpse of Terra.
Yep. And they're delicious. Were originally discovered on the vast plains of Kazi on Terra. Kazi is a region on the the planet Terra in the Terra system. Most notable for their unusual method of carrying their eggs on their underside. Weird. The Kazi grazer has become one of the standard seed animals, and there can be commonly and they can there typo and they can be commonly found on most terraformed planets in the UEE. So, Hurston,
just stupid efficient.
yeah, Hurston, Microtech, and I would be willing to bet that we see them on Bloom. Edders, Uggers,
It'd be
Edgers.
interesting. I wonder if they taste like bacon. Could you imagine an animal that their flesh tastes like bacon and they have eggs? It's an entire breakfast in one animal.
That's what I said. It's steak and eggs in one animal. It's a cow with eggs. You butcher it and
Steak
you
and
got
eggs,
breakfast.
yeah. I want the stupid like rancher gameplay loop in the game yesterday. I want it so bad. And if they don't put within the next year, right? Because this is coming in 3 months. If they don't put within the next year the job to move grazers between two locations, I have nothing to threaten them with. But just freaking do it. I want to have to herd 50 Kazi grazers onto my C2 and then have them get off at some ranch on Microtech, and then have to clean up after them. Great. Just perfect. For those of you who haven't seen Firefly, go watch Firefly.
I'm literally finding that scene right now.
Nice. Hi, Kat. How's it going? All right, you want me to take the next one while you were looking?
I just did Kazi Grazer. You are the next one.
So yes, you want me to take the next one while you're looking?
Yep.
Additional player customization. Following the release of the new character customizer in Alpha 3.23, this update adds additional hair, facial hair options, as well as face piercings. I believe that they also talked about getting and this was in the month report, the 20-something heads possibly by 4.0. I think was it 12 for each gender?
When that CIG. And you better make sure that you keep your atmosphere recyclers working, because otherwise, awkward when you land on the planet and, well, they're ready for slaughter, because they did.
Yeah, like they're gonna need the amount, their lungs are so much bigger than yours. The amount of oxygen they're gonna go through is terrifying.
Yep.
So you best be having some good atmosphere recyclers.
So more hair and additional hair and facial options, as well as face piercings. Tattoos when? It's
4.0.
Yeah, you showed off all those tattoos at CitizenCon. Want my tattoos. All right, RSI Zeus Mark II ES, building, balancing, and implementing RSI's small multi-cruise ship, the Zeus Mark II ES, which is the Explorer variant, into the game. I love the look of the Zeus. I'm a huge fan. I don't own one, but I'm strongly considering it. But I'm very excited to see this first one. But I really want the bounty hunter one for when bounty hunting comes in.
With the gameplay.
Yeah, with the gameplay. Otherwise, I don't care. Yeah.
I currently on my account have a CL, Zeus CL. Basically because I needed something that was that size I need one right now. So the loaner was the C1. The longer I'm in it, the more I hate it. It is a paper plane, and I've been shot down by like doing a retrieval up by handguns. And I waited for like 2 hours for somebody to finally be able to come and rescue me off the planet because I was shot with a P4AR and my ship went down. I'm expecting the Zeus to be a little more robust.
I feel like that's probably a bit of an oversight too.
Probably, but I'm like I can't get into fights with the C1 at all. It's really bugging me. I'm annoyed. Anyway, moving along. The following cards have been added to the release view, released in Alpha 3.23.0. The Mirai Pulse and the Mirai Pulse LX both say building, balancing, and implementing Mirai's hover bike, the Pulse LX, into the game. That's because they came out with the whole release with 3.23.0. They just didn't have an update in their interim to add it, so they're just kind of chucking it in here. And then we have one more category. You want to take both those?
Sure. The following cards have passed their final review for Alpha 3.23.1, which is now released. Therefore, we are toggling their status to committed. Aegis Retaliator Gold Standard. Updating the Aegis Retaliator to Gold Standard, including the introduction of modular rooms. The torpedo and cargo rooms will be available in this initial release, with more to come in the future. Vehicle modularity, implementing the ability to swap modular sections of certain vehicles to change their function. This initial release contains the torpedo room and cargo room modules for the Aegis Retaliator, with additional modules and vehicles to be added in the future.
It'll
be interesting to see how they flesh that out.
Yes, I imagine it has actually pretty heavily to do with the hangars and cargo updates. Like that just makes way too much sense. Basically, they're probably just gonna do the UI like their components.
You can't.
I'd like them to fix
the base. The base tally isn't modular. You can't swap the.
Correct. Apparently, I don't know how that happened. Like, shouldn't the base have gotten it first and the bomber be the one that gets it 6 months later? Like,
huh?
Are they the same ship? Base has so much more room than the cargo. There is no in-game modules in the base. Correct. They're just the empty rooms where the modules go.
So you can't. So unless you have bought the modules with cash, or are you saying that the Retaliator base is not modular, but the Retaliator bomber is modular? Oh.
Currently, that's how the sale is going, yes.
Well, that's an oversight. Kill it with fire. Ban.
Anyway, finally, on the Roadmap Roundup, as we're only 2 hours into this thing. God, this took way too long. That's all for this week. No progress tracker updates this week as work continues on the long-term planning. For further insights into the planning efforts of our production team, we invite you to review the last letter from the chairman, which stated that they are working on not just the Roadmap Roundup or the Roadmap Progress Tracker till the end of the year or end of the quarter. They're working on it all the way to 1.0. And the reason they can't give us a lot of now, though they said they should be giving us the progress tracker up to the end of the year soon, TM.
Yeah, they said.
But the reason they can't do a lot of the reason they can't do a lot of giving us stuff now, while they're still planning out, is let's say they plan out X, Y, Z, ABC 1, 2, 3 features till the next 3 years. 1.0 is at the end of that. Well, item number 3 needs to be not item 3, but needs to be item X. So they actually need to swap those around, but they need item, ampersand actually before 1.0. So they need to make sure they have the entire plan at least marked up so they know what stuff needs to fall where, and especially what stuff needs to definitely be in for 1.0. And that's the reason they have to go through this entire what's in 1.0 and this plan for 1.0 to give us even the next 3 quarters.
Yep. Well, that's it for the
They only work on
Roadmap
the
Roundup
battalion every 8 years.
for May 15th, 2024.
When did the Caterpillar come out? They haven't touched it. Don't even.
Yeah.
I want my doors to be fixed.